Most people prepare for money. Some prepare for success. Almost no one prepares for old age. And that is why old age destroys them. In the Buddha's first teachings, he did not start with happiness. He started with old age, sickness, and death. Not to frighten people, but to wake them up. Aging is not a surprise. It is guaranteed. Yet most people live as if it will somehow be different for them. They exhaust the body, clutter the mind, depend on others emotionally, and avoid discipline. Then one day, the body weakens, the mind becomes restless, and they realize too late that no one can walk this path for them. This talk is not about extending life forever. Buddhism does not promise that. This is about not suffering unnecessarily when old age arrives. If you do these things now, old age will not destroy you. If you ignore them, no amount of prayer, money, or regret will save you. 1. Accept aging before it arrives. The Buddha taught that suffering does not begin with pain itself. It begins with refusing to see things as they are. Aging becomes unbearable not because the body changes, but because the mind insists it should not. This refusal creates a second layer of suffering that is entirely optional, yet most people carry it until the end of their lives. From a young age, people are trained to deny aging. Youth is praised, strength is admired, speed is rewarded. Society quietly tells you that value comes from being sharp, productive, attractive, and independent. Over time, this message sinks deep into the mind. Without realizing it, people build their identity on temporary conditions. So they secretly believe, even if they never say it out loud, that they will somehow escape the full force of aging. They believe they will remain mentally quick, physically capable, socially respected, and emotionally in control. This belief feels comforting, but it is false. And false beliefs are dangerous because reality always wins. When the body begins to slow, when memory weakens, when appearance changes, the mind panics. It says, "This should not be happening." That thought alone multiplies suffering. The pain of aging is one thing, the shock of resistance is another. Buddhism is clear. Pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. Self-care in old age does not begin with medicine or support from others. It begins decades earlier with mental honesty. You must look directly at impermanence before it forces itself upon you. Impermanence is not a concept to admire. It is a truth to live with. Your body will weaken. This is not a personal failure. Muscles fade, bones lose density, recovery takes longer. This is not punishment, it is biology. Your face will change, lines appear. Skin loosens, hair grays or disappears. This is not decline in worth, it is nature expressing itself. Your speed will slow, reaction time changes, energy comes in shorter bursts. This is not laziness, it is aging. Your authority may fade, people may listen less, society may look past you. This is not injustice, it is how worldly value works. The Buddha never asked people to pretend these things are pleasant. He asked them to see them clearly. Clear seeing is the foundation of peace. Those who accept aging early are not surprised by it later. When change arrives, they recognize it as familiar. They have already contemplated it. They have already made peace with it in the mind. Because of this, they do not panic. They do not collapse emotionally. They do not waste precious energy wishing for the past to return. Instead, they adapt. They shift priorities. They conserve strength. They let go of unnecessary battles. They use their remaining energy wisely. This is not weakness. This is intelligence. Resistance, on the other hand, drains the mind. A resisting mind argues with reality all day long. It compares itself to younger versions. It obsesses over loss. It replays memories as weapons against the present. This constant inner conflict exhausts a person more than aging itself ever could. Acceptance does not mean giving up. It means stopping the internal war. It means saying, this is happening, whether I like it or not. How will I respond wisely? Many people misunderstand acceptance. They think it means passivity or hopelessness. That is wrong. In Buddhism, acceptance is clarity. It is seeing what cannot be changed, so you can act skillfully within what can. When you accept that the body is aging, you stop demanding impossible performance from it. You rest when needed. You move gently instead of violently. You choose care over punishment. When you accept that status fades, you stop chasing validation. You cultivate inner stability instead. When you accept that roles disappear, you discover who you are without them. The Buddha encouraged frequent reflection on aging, not once, not occasionally, regularly. This is not to make life grim. It is to make it honest. A mind that regularly reflects on aging is not shocked when it shows up. Sit with this truth regularly. This body is aging. Do not rush past it. Do not decorate it with philosophy. Let it land. Notice what arises. Fear may appear. Sadness may appear. Resistance may appear. That is fine. Observe them. Do not suppress them. Do not dramatize them. Over time, something shifts. The mind stops reacting so violently. Aging becomes familiar rather than threatening. You begin to plan realistically instead of fantasizing. You begin to value peace over appearance, depth over speed, wisdom over approval. This practice trains the mind to stay steady when conditions change. And conditions always change. People who never reflect on aging are the ones most devastated by it. They feel betrayed by life. They feel cheated. They feel angry at their own bodies. This bitterness poisons their remaining years. People who reflect early feel sadness, yes, but not bitterness. They grieve without collapsing. They adjust without resentment. They age without becoming hostile to life itself. Acceptance is not a single decision. It is a daily practice. Each time you notice stiffness, forgetfulness, fatigue, or slowing, you have a choice. You can resist and suffer more, or you can acknowledge and adapt. The mind trained in acceptance does not suffer less because life is kinder. It suffers less because it stops demanding that life be different from what it is. Old age does not suddenly begin at a certain number. It begins the moment you stop accepting change. Prepare now, not by fearing aging, but by understanding it. This is where real self-care begins. 2. Discipline the body while it still listens. The Buddha never taught that the body should be ignored, and he never taught that it should be worshipped. He taught something far more practical. The body is a tool, and like all tools, it must be maintained if you expect it to function when you need it most. Most people misunderstand this completely. When they are young, they treat the body as if it is indestructible. They overeat, undermove, undersleep, and overstimulate. They borrow energy from the future without realizing they are taking loans with brutal interest. Then, when old age arrives, they act surprised that the body no longer obeys them. Old age is not when the body stops listening. Old age is when the bill comes due. In Buddhism, discipline is not punishment. It is protection. The Buddha emphasized the middle way for a reason. Extreme indulgence damages the body. Extreme neglect does the same. Discipline keeps the body stable enough to support practice, clarity, and dignity later in life. When the body is young, it forgives mistakes quickly. When it ages, it does not. This is why discipline must be built early, while the body still responds easily. Not perfectly, consistently. You do not need obsession. You do not need vanity. You do not need to chase performance or appearance. What you need is regular care, walking instead of sitting endlessly, stretching instead of freezing the joints, eating simply instead of excessively, sleeping at proper times instead of abusing stimulation. These actions seem small. That is why people dismiss them. But aging is not shaped by dramatic moments. It is shaped by thousands of ordinary days. People often say, "I'll take care of my body later." This is ignorance. Later is when the body resists change. Later is when habits are harder to undo. Later is when damage is already embedded. The Buddha taught mindfulness of the body for a reason. Awareness of posture, movement, breathing, and physical sensation builds respect for the body's limits. A mindful person does not push the body to prove ego. They listen to it. Listening does not mean indulging every comfort. It means recognizing what strengthens and what weakens. Excess sugar weakens. Excess sitting weakens. Excess stimulation weakens. Irregular sleep weakens. You already know this. The problem is not lack of knowledge. It is lack of discipline. Old age exposes indiscipline mercilessly. Joints stiffen faster. Digestion becomes sensitive. Recovery slows. Sleep fragments. A disciplined body adapts. An undisciplined body suffers continuously. This is where many people deceive themselves. They believe discipline is about looking fit or appearing youthful. That is shallow thinking. Discipline is about preserving function. The ability to walk without pain, to sit without stiffness, to breathe deeply, to sleep without constant disturbance. These are priceless in old age, and they are built slowly. The Buddha did not praise indulgence, and he did not glorify self-harm. He taught care rooted in wisdom. When you eat, eat to sustain the body, not to numb the mind. When you move, move to maintain vitality, not to compete or impress. When you rest, rest to recover, not to escape responsibility. Discipline becomes especially important because the body eventually loses strength. When strength fades, habits remain. If your habit is movement, you will continue moving gently. If your habit is excess, the body will collapse under it. Many people wait for pain to motivate them. This is foolish. Pain is a poor teacher. By the time pain forces change, options are limited. Wisdom acts before pain becomes permanent. There is also a psychological aspect to bodily discipline that people ignore. A body cared for regularly gives the mind confidence, not arrogance, stability. When the body functions reasonably well, the mind has fewer distractions. Practice becomes easier. Emotional regulation improves. An uncared for body constantly pulls attention toward discomfort. This makes meditation harder, patience thinner, and frustration more frequent. People blame the mind, but the body is often the source. The Buddha emphasized posture in meditation for a reason. A stable body supports a stable mind. This remains true in old age. If you neglect the body now, you make mental clarity harder later. Another hard truth, old age reduces tolerance for excess. What you could once get away with will suddenly cause problems. Heavy food leads to exhaustion. Late nights lead to days of fog. Neglect leads to cascading issues. Discipline smooths this transition. This does not mean you must live rigidly or joylessly. It means you live deliberately. You choose what strengthens rather than what merely entertains. You respect limits instead of constantly testing them. A disciplined body also preserves dignity. Being unable to move, sit, or care for yourself prematurely erodes confidence. People often focus on mental independence, but forget physical independence. The two are connected. If you want fewer humiliations in old age, care for the body now. If you want fewer dependencies, build strength and flexibility now, not to defeat aging, but to meet it with less resistance. The Buddha never promised that discipline would prevent aging. He promised that wisdom would reduce suffering. Discipline is applied wisdom. Treat the body like a borrowed tool, not a permanent possession. Maintain it while you have it. Respect it while it responds. One day, it will no longer cooperate the way it does now. That day is coming whether you prepare or not. Those who prepare suffer less. Those who neglect pay more. This is not harsh. This is simply how causes and conditions work. 3. Train the mind to be alone. One of the greatest sufferings of old age is not physical weakness. It is mental loneliness. And this is where most people completely misunderstand the problem. Loneliness is not caused by being alone. It is caused by a mind that does not know how to rest within itself. The Buddha understood this clearly. That is why solitude was not treated as a punishment in Buddhism, but as a training ground. A mind that cannot be alone is a mind that depends on conditions it cannot control. Old age removes many of those conditions. When people are young, they surround themselves with noise, conversation, entertainment, social roles, constant stimulation. They mistake activity for meaning. They mistake connection for dependence. As long as these things are present, they feel fine. But they never train the mind to stand on its own. Then old age arrives. Friends pass away. Social circles shrink. Children become busy. Attention fades. Invitations stop. Silence increases. For an untrained mind, this silence feels unbearable. It feels like abandonment. It feels like erasure. This is not because old age is cruel. It is because the mind was never trained for quiet. The Buddha did not teach isolation. He taught inner independence. There is a critical difference. Solitude in Buddhism is not about pushing people away. It is about removing the constant need for others to stabilize your emotions. If your peace depends on company, praise, conversation, or distraction, then peace will collapse when those things disappear. Old age exposes emotional dependency, the same way it exposes physical weakness. This is why training the mind to be alone must begin early. Being alone means being present without escaping. It means sitting in silence without reaching for stimulation. It means allowing thoughts to arise without needing to share them, suppress them, or act on them. This is uncomfortable at first. That discomfort is exactly what needs to be trained. Most people cannot sit quietly for even a short time without feeling restless. The mind searches for noise. It looks for something to consume, something to react to, something to distract itself. This restlessness is not personality, it is conditioning. The Buddha taught meditation not to make people calm temporarily, but to make the mind self-sufficient. A mind that knows how to observe itself does not panic in silence. Old age brings long hours of quiet. If the mind is not trained, those hours become heavy. Memories replay, regrets surface, fear multiplies. The mind turns against itself because it has never learned to sit without entertainment. People often say they fear loneliness in old age. What they really fear is facing their own mind without distractions. Training the mind to be alone means slowly reducing dependence on external stimulation. It does not mean cutting off relationships. It means not needing them to feel whole. Practice being alone intentionally. Sit without music, walk without headphones, eat without screens. Notice how quickly the mind looks for escape. Do not judge it, observe it. This observation is the beginning of freedom. At first, silence feels loud. Thoughts become sharper. Emotions become clearer. This scares people, so they return to noise. But if you stay, something changes. The mind begins to settle. It stops demanding constant input. It starts to rest. The Buddha taught that craving is the root of suffering. Craving for company is still craving. Craving for attention is still craving. Craving for stimulation is still craving. Old age removes the objects of craving. A craving-based mind suffers intensely when that happens. A trained mind does not rely on constant interaction to feel alive. It finds stability in awareness itself. This does not make a person cold or detached. It makes them grounded. There is also dignity in this. An elderly person who is comfortable in silence does not beg for attention. They do not cling. They do not guilt others into company. Their presence is calm, not needy. People feel at ease around them. Compare this to someone who has never trained the mind. Silence feels like rejection. Being alone feels like failure. They become bitter. Complaining replaces conversation. Dependency replaces connection. This suffering is preventable. The Buddha often praised contentment. Contentment does not mean having nothing. It means not needing more than what is present. A content mind can sit alone without feeling deprived. This is crucial in old age because life naturally becomes smaller. Fewer activities, fewer responsibilities, fewer distractions. If your sense of meaning depends on busyness, old age will feel empty. If your sense of meaning comes from awareness, old age can feel spacious. Training the mind to be alone also prepares you for illness. There will be times when you are confined, tired, or separated from others. A trained mind remains steady. An untrained mind spirals. Do not confuse solitude with depression. Depression is resistance to experience. Solitude is openness to experience. One closes the heart, the other strengthens it. The Buddha spent long periods in solitude, not because he hated people, but because he understood the mind. He knew that clarity is born in quiet. Old age strips away distractions. You can either suffer when that happens, or you can prepare now. Start small, sit quietly each day, reduce unnecessary noise. Learn to observe thoughts without chasing them. Learn to be present without performing. Learn to be complete without an audience. When the mind learns to be alone, loneliness loses its power. And when loneliness loses its power, old age loses one of its sharpest weapons. This is not withdrawal from life. This is preparation for reality. Train the mind while it still has energy. Silence will come whether you welcome it or not. 4. Simplify your life before you are forced to. Old age has no patience for excess. What once felt manageable slowly becomes heavy. Not all at once, but piece by piece. And when people finally notice the weight, they are already too tired to carry it. The Buddha understood this deeply. That is why he spoke so often about attachment, not as a moral issue, but as a practical one. Attachment is not only about desire, it is about accumulation. Too many things, too many roles, too many worries, too many unresolved emotions. Old age does not add new burdens. It exposes the ones you have been carrying all along. Most people live complex lives without realizing it. They fill their days with obligations they do not question. They collect possessions they do not need. They maintain relationships out of habit, not harmony. They carry resentments for years, replaying old arguments in their minds. While they are young, they have the energy to manage this complexity. When energy fades, complexity turns into suffering. Old age simplifies life whether you choose it or not. The question is whether you simplify consciously or painfully. The Buddha taught non-attachment because clinging exhausts the mind. When the body weakens, mental exhaustion becomes unbearable. A cluttered life demands constant attention. A simple life conserves it. Simplifying your life does not mean abandoning responsibility. It means removing what does not serve clarity, peace, or necessity. It means distinguishing between what is essential and what is merely habitual. Possessions are an obvious place to begin. Every object you own demands space, maintenance, attention. and eventually disposal. While young, people underestimate this cost. In old age, it becomes obvious. A house full of unused items becomes a burden, not a comfort. The Buddha lived with almost nothing, not to prove a point, but to remain free. You do not need to live like a monk to learn from this. You need to ask honest questions. Do I use this? Do I need this? Does this bring calm or complication? Letting go of possessions is not loss, it is relief. Each object released is one less thing to manage when strength declines. But simplification goes far beyond physical things. Old age has little tolerance for emotional clutter. Unresolved anger, guilt, jealousy, and resentment become louder in silence. People often believe time heals these things. It does not. Avoidance keeps them alive. The Buddha taught forgiveness and compassion not because they are noble, but because they free the mind. Carrying old grudges into old age is like carrying stones uphill when your legs are already weak. Simplify your emotional life now. Say what needs to be said. Apologize where needed. Let go where repair is impossible. Stop replaying old injuries. You are not protecting yourself. You are exhausting yourself. Relationships also need simplification. Not every connection needs to be maintained. Some relationships drain more than they nourish. While young, people tolerate this for social reasons. In old age, this tolerance becomes costly. This does not mean cutting people off harshly. It means reducing exposure to what consistently disturbs the mind. The Buddha emphasized wise association. The people around you shape your mental state. Choose calm over chaos, honesty over drama, depth over obligation. Simplifying commitments is equally important. Many people overcommit out of fear. Fear of being irrelevant, fear of being forgotten, fear of disappointing others. Old age exposes how unsustainable this is. When energy decreases, every unnecessary obligation becomes a source of stress. The Buddha taught contentment because it protects peace. Learn to say no before the body forces you to. Another overlooked area of simplification is expectation. Many people carry expectations about how old age should look, how others should treat them, how much respect they should receive. When these expectations are unmet, bitterness grows. The Buddha warned against craving conditions. Craving is not limited to pleasure. Craving respect, attention, or recognition is still craving. Simplifying expectations reduces disappointment. Accept that society changes, roles shift, attention moves on. This is not personal, it is impermanence in action. A simplified life is not empty, it is spacious. There is room to breathe, room to observe, room to practice. When distractions fall away, what remains becomes clear. People often fear simplification because they confuse it with loss. In reality, it is preparation. A simple life is easier to carry when strength fades. A simple mind is easier to steady when change accelerates. Old age will remove excess for you if you do not remove it yourself. Illness, fatigue, or circumstance will strip away what you thought was necessary. This is often painful because it happens suddenly. Voluntary simplification is gentle. Forced simplification is harsh. The Buddha did not teach renunciation to punish life. He taught it to make life livable under all conditions. Begin simplifying now, not in a rush, not with violence, slowly, honestly, thoughtfully. Ask yourself what truly matters when everything else falls away. Build your life around that. When old age arrives, you will not feel robbed. You will feel ready, and readiness is one of the greatest forms of self-care. 5. Cultivate inner worth, not social value. One of the quiet shocks of old age is the realization that the world no longer measures you the way it used to. Attention fades, opinions carry less weight, praise becomes rare. Society does not announce this change, it simply moves on. For many people, this is more painful than physical decline. The Buddha understood this long before modern society existed. He saw clearly that worldly value is unstable. It rises and falls based on conditions you cannot control. Age, appearance, productivity, influence, usefulness. When these conditions change, so does the value society assigns to you. If your sense of worth is built on these things, old age will feel like a steady erosion of identity. Most people spend their lives unconsciously tying self-worth to roles: provider, leader, worker, expert, caregiver. When those roles weaken or disappear, they feel invisible. They think something has gone wrong. In truth, they built their identity on something temporary. The Buddha taught that clinging to identity is a form of suffering, not because identity is evil, but because it is unstable. Anything dependent on conditions will eventually collapse. Inner worth is different. It is not granted by others, and it does not expire with age. It is cultivated through character, through how you live when no one is watching. This is why Buddhism places such emphasis on virtue: keeping precepts, speaking truthfully, acting with restraint, practicing generosity, developing compassion. These things do not age. A kind person does not become less kind with wrinkles. An honest person does not lose honesty when strength fades. Inner worth grows quietly over time. It does not demand applause. It does not rely on attention. And because of that, it remains when social value disappears. Old age exposes the difference between these two forms of worth. Someone who lived for status feels humiliated when status fades. Someone who lived for virtue remains steady. They do not feel superior. They feel grounded. Many people mistake inner worth for self-esteem. They are not the same. Self-esteem often depends on comparison. Inner worth does not. It is not about feeling good. It is about being at peace with how you have lived. The Buddha never taught people to chase respect. He taught them to be respectable in conduct. Respect from others is uncertain. Self-respect is stable. As physical strength declines, moral strength becomes more visible. People may not admire your speed, but they notice patience. They may not need your labor, but they feel your presence. Quiet integrity carries weight, even when authority fades. This is why cultivating inner worth must begin early. Not because old age is coming soon, but because character is built slowly. Each choice reinforces who you become. If you cut corners now, you weaken inner worth. If you act ethically only when convenient, inner worth remains shallow. Old age does not hide these things, it reveals them. There is another hard truth here. People who depend on social value often become bitter in old age. They feel ignored. They feel disrespected. They demand recognition that no longer comes. This bitterness poisons relationships and isolates them further. This suffering is self-created, not intentionally, but through misplaced investment. The Buddha taught non-attachment to praise and blame. This teaching is often misunderstood. It does not mean becoming indifferent. It means not letting external opinion define your sense of self. When you are young, praise feels nourishing. When you are old, it becomes unreliable. A mind trained in inner worth does not starve when praise disappears. Cultivating inner worth also protects dignity. Dignity does not come from being admired. It comes from knowing you have lived in alignment with your values. This knowledge is deeply stabilizing in old age. Even when the body fails, even when memory weakens, even when independence declines, inner worth remains accessible. It is not stored in muscles or status. It is stored in how you have trained the mind. The Buddha emphasized reflection on conduct. Regularly ask yourself whether your actions reduce suffering or increase it. whether they come from greed, aversion, or clarity. This reflection strengthens inner worth over time. Old age strips away performance. You can no longer hide behind achievement or busyness. What remains is character. If that character is strong, old age is bearable. If it is neglected, old age becomes a mirror you do not want to face. This is not meant to frighten you, it is meant to redirect your investment. Do not spend your life chasing value that expires. Invest in what remains when everything else falls away. When society stops applauding, you will still be at peace. And that peace is worth more than attention ever was. 6. Prepare for dependence without fear. One of the greatest fears people carry about old age is dependence. The fear of needing help. The fear of losing control. The fear of becoming a burden. This fear silently shapes how people think about aging, and it often creates more suffering than dependence itself ever does. The Buddha did not teach the illusion of complete independence. He taught interdependence. Everything arises through conditions. The body depends on food. The mind depends on training. Life depends on others in ways we often refuse to acknowledge. Old age does not create dependence. It reveals it. When people cling tightly to the idea of self-sufficiency, old age becomes humiliating. Every loss of ability feels like a personal failure. Pride turns into anger. Gratitude turns into resentment. This is not because help is harmful, but because the mind was never prepared to receive it. Preparing for dependence does not mean giving up autonomy early. It means loosening pride now. The Buddha emphasized humility not as self-denial, but as wisdom. A humble mind understands its limits. It does not pretend to stand alone. It does not collapse when support is needed. It adapts. Many people say they want to remain independent until the end. This desire sounds reasonable, but it is unrealistic. Bodies break down, illness appears, strength fluctuates. Planning for eternal independence is planning for disappointment. The wiser approach is to prepare mentally for moments of dependence without fear or bitterness. This begins by observing how you receive help now. Do you resist assistance even when it is reasonable? Do you feel embarrassed when someone supports you? Do you interpret help as weakness? These reactions reveal pride, not strength. The Buddha taught that clinging to self-image is a form of suffering. The image of being capable, strong, and self-reliant feels good, but it is fragile. Old age shatters fragile identities. A mind trained in humility accepts help without losing dignity. Dignity does not come from doing everything alone. It comes from responding wisely to circumstances. Gratitude is central here. When help is received with gratitude instead of resentment, relationships strengthen instead of deteriorate. Care becomes cooperation rather than humiliation. In old age, dependence can create deep bitterness when the mind interprets it as injustice. I used to do everything myself. Now I am useless. These thoughts are not facts. They are interpretations. Buddhism teaches that suffering comes from clinging to interpretations, not from circumstances alone. You are not your abilities. You are not your productivity. You are awareness itself, experiencing changing conditions. Preparing for dependence also means learning to give without control while you are still able. Many people help others in ways that create obligation. They keep mental records. They expect loyalty in return. This creates fear of reversal in old age. The Buddha taught generosity without attachment. Giving freely trains the mind to understand that roles shift. Sometimes you support. Sometimes you are supported. Both are natural. When generosity is practiced without control, receiving later feels less shameful. It feels like balance rather than failure. Another aspect of preparation is communication. Many people avoid discussing aging, illness, or care because it makes them uncomfortable. Avoidance does not prevent dependence, it prevents preparedness. The Buddha emphasized right speech and clarity. Discussing future needs calmly reduces fear. It turns uncertainty into planning. It allows relationships to adjust naturally instead of under crisis. Old age often brings moments where independence fluctuates. Some days you are capable, some days you are not. A rigid mind suffers under this inconsistency. A flexible mind adapts. Flexibility is a form of strength. The bamboo bends in the storm while rigid trees snap. The Buddha repeatedly warned against pride because pride resists change. Old age is nothing but change. A proud mind fights every loss. A humble mind flows with it. There is also a deeper truth here. At the end of life, everyone becomes dependent on care, on conditions, on letting go. No one escapes this. Preparing for dependence is preparing for death itself. This preparation does not make life smaller, it makes it honest. Those who prepare suffer less because they are not shocked. They do not feel betrayed. They understand that needing others does not erase worth. Dependence without fear is possible. It requires training now, not later. Loosen pride, practice gratitude, give without control, receive without shame. When old age arrives, you will not feel diminished. You will feel human. And that understanding brings peace where fear once lived. 7. Contemplate death daily. This is the lesson most people avoid, and because they avoid it, it becomes the lesson that hurts them the most. Old age is frightening not because of weakness, but because it stands closer to death. If death is unexamined, old age becomes unbearable. If death is understood, old age loses much of its terror. The Buddha was uncompromising on this point. He did not treat death as an abstract idea or a distant event. He taught frequent contemplation of death as a core practice, not occasionally, not symbolically, daily. This makes people uncomfortable because modern life trains the mind to avoid death at all costs. We distract ourselves, we joke about it, we push it into hospitals and silence. We act as if not thinking about death will somehow delay it. This is delusion. Death is not made worse by awareness. It is made worse by denial. Old age magnifies this denial. As the body weakens, the mind begins to sense the truth it has avoided for decades. Fear arises not because death is near, but because the mind is unprepared. It has never looked directly at the end of life, so it panics when signs appear. The Buddha taught that fear comes from attachment to the body, attachment to identity, attachment to unfinished desires, attachment to control. Death threatens all of these at once. If you wait until old age to think about death, you will think about it with fear. If you contemplate it daily while you are strong, you learn to face it with clarity. Contemplating death does not mean imagining dramatic endings. It means remembering a simple truth. This life is temporary, and its ending is uncertain. You may live long, you may not. You will definitely die. This reflection changes how you live. When death is remembered, trivial conflicts lose importance. Pride softens, greed becomes obvious, procrastination becomes dangerous. You stop assuming there will always be time later. The Buddha taught, of all footprints, the elephant's footprint is the greatest. Of all contemplations, the contemplation of death is the greatest. He said this because awareness of death organizes the entire mind. Old age becomes painful when people suddenly realize how much time they wasted. Regret becomes louder when the future shrinks. This regret is not caused by death. It is caused by unconscious living. Daily contemplation of death reduces regret. When you live with awareness of impermanence, you speak more honestly. You forgive sooner. You practice more sincerely. You waste less energy on what does not matter. People fear that thinking about death will make them depressed. The opposite is usually true. Avoiding death creates anxiety. Facing it creates urgency and clarity. The Buddha did not teach death contemplation to make people gloomy. He taught it to wake them up. Old age is often described as a time of reflection, but reflection without preparation becomes rumination. Memories replay endlessly. Missed opportunities feel heavy. Fear of the unknown dominates the mind. A mind trained in death contemplation experiences old age differently. It sees aging as confirmation of a truth already known. Yes, this body is declining. This was expected. There is sadness, but not panic. There is seriousness, but not despair. Another important aspect of this practice is understanding that death is not something that happens only at the end. Change is happening constantly. Cells die, roles die, relationships die, youth dies. Each moment is a small ending. The Buddha taught impermanence not to be poetic, but to be practical. If you can accept small endings daily, the final ending becomes less shocking. Contemplating death also exposes false priorities. People often plan endlessly for futures they may never reach, while neglecting inner development. Old age exposes this imbalance painfully. Those who trained only for comfort struggle when comfort disappears. Those who trained the mind remain stable even when conditions deteriorate. Death contemplation redirects effort toward what actually carries through old age: wisdom, clarity, compassion, and mental discipline. There is also a profound freedom that comes from this practice. When you truly accept that death is certain and timing is uncertain, fear of minor losses decreases. You stop clinging so tightly. You stop trying to control everything. You become more present. Old age is frightening when people feel unfinished. It is peaceful when people feel they have lived consciously. The Buddha emphasized right effort, not frantic effort, right effort. Practicing now while the mind is flexible is far easier than trying to force clarity when the body is failing. Another hard truth: at the end of life, external supports weaken. The body weakens. Sensory pleasures fade. Social roles dissolve. What remains is the mind. If the mind has never been trained to face impermanence, death will feel like theft. If the mind has been trained, death feels like a natural conclusion. This does not mean there will be no fear at all. Buddhism does not promise emotional numbness. It promises less confusion, less resistance, less panic. Contemplating death daily is not about obsessing over dying. It is about learning how to live without illusion. Sit quietly and reflect. This life is uncertain. Death is certain. What matters today? Let this question guide your actions. Old age rewards those who have asked this question early. Those who never did are forced to ask it when time is short, energy is low, and fear is high. Do not make that mistake. Prepare now, not by predicting death, but by understanding it. When death is no longer avoided, old age no longer feels like a threat. It feels like a final season of clarity, and clarity is the greatest peace the Buddha ever offered. Old age is not a mistake. It is not a punishment. It is not something that suddenly goes wrong at the end of life. It is the natural result of causes and conditions unfolding exactly as they always have. What makes old age unbearable is not weakness, slowness, or dependence. What makes it unbearable is being unprepared. The Buddha never promised comfort. He promised clarity, and clarity is what reduces suffering. If you accept aging before it arrives, the mind does not panic when change begins. If you discipline the body while it still listens, the body supports you instead of collapsing early. If you train the mind to be alone, silence does not feel like abandonment. If you simplify your life, Old age feels lighter instead of overwhelming. If you cultivate inner worth, fading attention does not wound you. If you prepare for dependence, needing help does not destroy your dignity. If you contemplate death daily, old age does not terrify you. None of this is dramatic, none of this is complicated, and none of this can be done at the last minute. Old age reveals how you lived. It does not change who you are, it exposes it. Those who live unconsciously suffer consciously at the end. Those who live consciously suffer less when the end approaches. This is not harsh. This is simply how the path works. You do not prepare for old age by chasing youth. You prepare by training the mind, caring for the body, and letting go of illusions. Do not wait for fear to motivate you. Fear arrives too late. Do not wait for loss to teach you. Loss is a brutal teacher. Begin now, quietly, steadily, honestly. Old age is coming, whether you are ready or not. Wisdom decides whether it breaks you or frees you. The Buddha showed the way. Walking it is your responsibility,